We are working on composites of functions. And we are looking at our gold notes from yesterday, and we needed to finish problem number 16. And so, when you look at 15 and then you look at 16, what's the difference between 15 and 16? Does 15 have a number right there? 15 doesn't? Okay, so when it has a number on the inside, you start on the inside. But this number is on the outside. So guess where you're going to start? You're going to start on the outside. And so because the number is on the outside, you're going to start on the outside. So you're writing this down on your paper. And this number right here, this number that we usually start with is the X number, and this number is the Y number. So instead of counting on the X-axis this time, I'm going to count on the Y-axis because this is the Y number, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to draw a line across here on my Y-axis at 3. I'm counting on the Y-axis because this is a Y number. This point right here where it crosses my graph is 5, 3. If f of 5 is equal to 3, that's the point 5, 3. Now this 5 I just found becomes the answer to the inside function. This number becomes the answer to the other function. Now what's this equal to? On this function called g, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I put a line across here at 5. Do you notice I have 2 points this time where it counts across the graph? It crosses the graph right here and right here. And so this is 1 and 5. Is this one over here a pretty point? 1, 2, 3, 4, I think it's about 4.5. So we're just going to have to approximate 4.5 and 5. Well, it's actually negative 4.5 because I counted to the left. So this one has 2 answers. X could be equal to negative 4.5 or X could be equal to 1. This is your answer. It asks this time, what is X equal to? The difference in this problem is it gives you the Y and you have to figure out the X. Problem number 17. When it gives you the number on the outside, guess where you start? On the outside. This is the X number you're figuring out, and this 5 that it gave you is the Y number. Now, since this is the letter F, I'm starting on this graph right here, which is the graph for F. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where the Y value is equal to 5. This time I'm counting on the Y-axis because that's a Y number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This point right here is 6 and 5. If X is 6, Y is 5. This number that I just figured out becomes the answer to G. Using this graph right here, because this is the G graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Why did I count 5? What number am I supposed to be counting? I am supposed to be counting 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because this number right here is 6. This point right here. So if this is 6, what is this? in the interest of saving time, I'm going to go ahead and skip that last problem. On your homework paper, on the front of your homework paper, 10, 11, and 12 are the same type of problem, but instead of using a graph, on the front of your homework paper, 10, 11, and 12 is the same concept, applying it to a table. So I'm going to let you see if you can figure that out. So at this time, let's go ahead and look at our pink notes. Look at our pink notes. On our pink notes, well, let me go back and say, we did sum and difference, adding and subtracting on our blue homework that's due today. We are going to do multiply and divide in just, actually, we're probably not going to get to it till Monday. And what we're going to look at today is the composite part of these notes. So we're going to start at the back. We're going to skip over here to problem number 6. Would you please look at problem number 6 in your notes? We're going to start at the back and work up. Now, on your notes, up here on the board, it looks like this says absolute value. But on your notes, is it absolute value? No, I'm having technical difficulties. These are brackets. This is a composite function. Now look at the difference between this problem and problem number 1. Now flip back over to problem. Is problem number 1 a composite? Problem number 1 has a G and an F and a G, has 2 function names. Does that make it a composite? We see that little dot in the middle in problem number 1? That's telling you problem number 1 is a multiply. Do you see any dot in the middle of this one? That's telling you it's a composite. Do you have an inside number? 2? If you have an inside number, guess where you start? On the inside. This is like the problems we were doing on the blue paper, where it gives you a number and you put it into a equation. This has an equation for you to look at. And so I am going to substitute the 2 in place of the x, like we were doing on this blue paper. Okay, so what is that equal to? Do you multiply 3 times 2 and then square it? Does it make any difference? Order of operation says you have to do the 2 squared first. What's 2 squared? And then 4 times 3 is 12. And then, because this is a composite, you take that 12 and put it into the function called g. The function called g is x plus 6. In place of that x, I'm going to put a 12. In place of this x, I'm going to put a 12 because that tells me to substitute in 12, and the final answer is? And so the 18 goes up here in the answer blank is the final answer. You do first one function and then another function. Okay, let's see. I want to. Problem number 7. Problem number 7 has an inside number, so I'm going to start with the inside function. This says g, so I'm going to look at this one right here. In place of the x, I'm going to substitute in a -8. I'm going to take that -2 and put it in place into the function called h, into this one. And in place of the x, I'm going to put a -2. Place of the x in function h, I'm going to put a -2. What's -2 squared? Positive 4 or negative 4? -2 times -2 is positive 4 times 3 is The final answer is 12. Please look at problem number 5 with me. Now you see on problem number 5 it has a circle there in the middle. Does that mean the same thing as problem number 1? Is that the same? Problem number 1 has a dot. This has a circle. Is that the same? No. This open circle means a composite. If it looks like it spells the word fog, it's a composite. That little closed dot in problem number 1 means multiply. This means a composite. But do I have a number to work from the inside out like I did in the previous problem? Do I have a number? No, I just have an X. So if I don't have a number to work with, I am going to start with the outside function. The difference between the problem I just did and this problem right here is I don't have a number to substitute in. If I don't have a number to substitute in, I'm going to start with the outside function, and it's going to be kind of like what I did over here on the blue paper where I substituted in an expression. In place of this X, I'm going to substitute in the G of X. In place of the X, I'm going to substitute in the G of X. All of it. All of this goes in place of the X. This is the G of X. Well, what's that? How do you square that? Well, do you see that the parentheses is around all of it? So you square all of it. What is negative 4 times negative 4? Now, this year we have not done our exponents yet. That's coming up very soon. Do you know what x squared squared again is? X squared squared is x to the 4th. That is the composite of f of g. That's not a single number because I wasn't given a number to substitute in. Everybody got it? Now, there has a second part to problem number 5. What's the difference between the first part and the second part? The order of the letters, f of g, g of f. Does it make any difference? Does it matter which way you do it? Well, let's find out. Maybe. Okay, this open circle there indicates a composite. Since I don't have a number to start out with, I start with the outside function. And in place of the x, I'm going to substitute in the function called f. X squared minus 1, x squared minus 1 squared. In place of the x, I substituted in the function. And then I need to simplify that a little bit. Can I distribute the 4 into the parentheses? Do you see that this parentheses is squared? You cannot distribute into a parentheses that's squared. You can only distribute into a plain parentheses. So what does that mean I have to do with this? How do you square it? Nope. Do you know what I'm doing? You can't just square the first one and square the last one. It means you multiply it by yourself. Find a margin, turn over on the back, multiply it out with a box problem, X squared times another x squared is x to the fourth. X squared times negative 1. Negative 1 times x squared. 1 times 1 is 1. Negative times negative makes a positive. To square that, you have to multiply it out with a box problem or FOIL. And so this is equal to, still have the negative 4, x to the fourth power minus 2x squared plus 1. This is equal to f of x, so I changed it to f of x. That's supposed to be a negative sign. Now can I distribute the negative 4? Does that parentheses have anything squared? Is this parentheses squared over here? What happened to the square? Multiplied it out with the box problem. So, the final answer is negative 4x to the fourth positive 8x squared minus 4. The final answer is still going to have x's in it, because up here I wasn't given a number to substitute in place of the x. We're going to save the rest of those examples for Monday, so please don't lose your paper before Monday. On problem number 3, do you have a number to substitute in place of x? If you will turn over on the back of your homework paper, when you get to problem 6 through 10, do you have numbers to substitute in? On problem 6 through 10, I should have a single number for the answer. But here I don't have any numbers to substitute in, so I am going to start with the function called f. You start with the outside function if you don't have an inside number to start with. So that would be, you see where I got that on problem number 3? And in place of the x, I'm going to substitute the function that's called g. What is that? G is x minus 4. In place of the x, I'm going to substitute the function called x minus 4. Now, a guy was doing this earlier, and he got all of these wrong because he left out the parentheses. You are substituting in the entire function x minus 4. The x minus 4 is all multiplied by the 3. What am I going to do with the 3? That is the answer to the first part. Then we have the second part. Let me make that look better. If we do not have a number to substitute in right there, we start with the outside function. What is g? X minus 4. And in place of the x, we substitute the function called f of x. What would that be? Is there anything to distribute? That's the answer. On number 3, the first part and the second part, did you get the same answer or different answers? You got different answers. The order does make a difference. And so continue on with the problems on this pink page.